What's up, everybody? Big Herc getting down with Fresh Out, and you tune into another edition of Prison Talk. Hit the subscribe button, man. We're still working on getting that 500,000 and then eventually that 1,000,000 subscribers. We put out some of the dopest content on YouTube, even though we're censored, but we want to keep bringing it to you, so support. And during this self-quarantine, we're trying to keep everybody's morale up, everybody's spirits high, by sharing different things that, having been locked down in prison, that can maybe help you guys feel more at ease on the street. One of the biggest things is communicating, having family members or friends, to talk to. While you have the opportunity and why you still have access to the internet, text, emails, voice calls, FaceTime, minimal travel, communicate with your family. Get a sense of what's going on. Don't watch the news all day long and let that get you depressed and feel, down. Talk to other people. Talk about things outside of this self-quarantine. Keep your morale up. Stay positive. Spend time with your kids. Talk to your kids. Turn the TV off and do activities. Play board games. Maybe build models. Do things that are family activities that will have everybody involved, that will, get your focus off the actual lockdown, the self-quarantine. These are things you can do. In prison, guys would play dominoes if you had a celly, cards, draw, do a lot of artwork while they were locked down, write. People would write books. I wrote 2 books on lockdown, actually 3 books. I wrote during lockdown because I had all the time in the world. So outside of working out, I would just write, lay on the bunk and write for hours. So, use your creative side. If you're a writer, if you're somebody who's contemplating writing, you got ideas, you're a musician, you can write, work on music, do things to keep your mind occupied so you don't go crazy. The big thing in there was, if you didn't have anybody in your cell, you'd be talking through the door or talking through the toilet or whatever the case may be, trying to maintain your sanity. Because after a couple weeks of lockdown, your mind starts playing tricks on you. And you don't want your mind to play tricks on you, especially on a situation like this. You want to keep your center of self. Financially, nobody was making money in there while the prison was on lockdown. So if you had a hustle, whether it's running a ticket, whether it's running a gambling table, whether it's working in the kitchen, sometimes the kitchen, they would let kitchen workers out to go cook and come back. So they had sometimes access to getting out, and they would let them get out and still cook for the rest of the compound, because the officers had got tired of cooking. They didn't want to be dealing with the kitchen stuff. So they would let out a few people to go work in the kitchen. And then if you had a homeboy who was cool, he would say, hey man, let so-and-so out to come work with me. So you'd be able to get out, at least you could talk. And that was such a big thing, because nobody wants to be stuck in their cell for 24 hours at a time. So, being able to get out and cook and stuff like that was very big. And then you also got to, make your special food. So food is like your lifeline in there. So those are, that's another big thing in there. There was no phone calls. You couldn't talk to anybody, as far as on the street, to let them know how you were doing. And that was very challenging for a lot of people, because they were used to talking to their kids or wife or their family. And, there was no communication from the outside. And you had to really, dig deep to, self-sustain when it came to knowing that you were going to make it out of the situation all right. Back to as far as employment and working, after a certain amount of time, these prisons, they have a financial obligation, so they would sometimes let the Unicor workers go to work because they need the factories open. Similar to what's going on now. A lot of these trucking places are still transporting goods. They're still operating at full capacity, because the commerce is the lifeline of the world. Without commerce, there is no world pumping. There's no world economy. So you still have to have goods being moved around, and you still need people to be able to consume and somehow produce to a degree, even if it's on a skeleton's crew. So that's also an interesting thing when you talk about, who's working right now. I know a lot of you guys aren't working. You're filing for unemployment, and I know this is crushing the middle class. I mean, nobody's even talking about that, but all these people who have businesses that pay rent, that are dependent on sales, a lot of you guys who work for yourself, who are depending on tips, it's just sad, man. And I don't want to see an epidemic. We're dealing with a pandemic. I don't want to see an epidemic either. And I know people are dying. A lot of people have been affected, older people especially, people with compromised respiratory systems, health issues, immune deficiencies are being compromised. But for the economy to come down to where it's at right now, man, I just really send out prayers to everybody, man, hoping that you guys can get back on your feet and that this doesn't last to beyond a point where the damage that's already been done cannot be repaired. Because I know a lot of people, it's going to be hard for them to recover. I don't care if you get a $5,000 check. It's not going to make a big difference. Yeah, man, most people weren't prepared, and even if you were prepared, the wealthiest people, well, the wealthy is different, the richest people, because there's difference between wealthy and rich, they could be affected because, if they don't meet certain deadlines, certain things aren't done, they could actually default. So there's a lot of things going on during this lockdown besides worrying about toilet paper, besides, worried about just the basics. And, everybody's like, tell us what to do. And that's another big thing where a lot of people can't even think for themselves. And they're so used to being told what to do. They're happy to accept whatever they're being told. They're not even thinking. Most people have no clue as far as the history of any of this stuff, what happened in, other countries with lockdowns and stuff. They don't have any clue. So, people are just like, oh man, and it's a shame that we are not as conscious as we should be. And maybe more people will be conscious after this. Maybe more people will want to read it and not just be foolishly entertained by the mundane, by the ignorant, and maybe it will create some type of paradigm change, but I don't know. It still seems like the stuff that has no meaning gets the most interest, and that's a sad situation. So you're dealing with what we're dealing with, and there's probably a lot of signs and warnings that were put in play before this happened that we didn't pay attention to. I couldn't have ever imagined, like I said, even seeing the different signs. I didn't think it was going to be this, to this extent. So it's pretty crazy, you guys. Yeah, so you guys stay positive, stay spiritual, tap in with your loved ones. If you have a job that you had to go to, see how you can transition whatever you're doing into a remote situation, and somehow use online commerce. I know even then, a lot of people are kind of hesitant to make purchases because of the uncertainty, but all we could do is just stay positive, man. And we're going to keep kicking out the content, conscious content, not buffoonery, not just talking about how to get your chest big or your arms big. We do have that information on wigsbutterworkout.com as far as working out at home, but just work your mind out. Work your mind out, be sharp, and take this time, like I said, to figure out some things that you never thought that you needed to figure out, and to do your homework so that you will be at least more educated in future situations, and think on a global rather than a local scale. Big Herc, fresh out Prison Talk.